Guido Corbetta will now speak first, and Paolo Morosetti from Bocconi will come later. Guido started about 20 years ago with Bocconi on family companies with research and teaching. And at Bocconi there are several courses on all the levels, from undergraduate, graduate and MBA. And this year in March they founded an endowed chair on strategic management on family business, founded by the Family Business Network in Italy and EY. In Italy he is also a member of some boards of large corporations, and Guido also works as a consultant. Guido will do the introductions and host this event from now on and introduce the other speakers. He will run us through the program.
Second, suggestion. These data are quite clear. So the Italian data confirm that some experience is good, but too much experience is bad. Gianni Agnelli is the grandfather of John, and he wrote, groups like ours typically go through 3 stages in their development: a time of strength, a time of privilege, and a time of vanity. For me, the first is the only one that counts.
The #1 brewer in the world, AB InBev, started also in the early 19th century, so 50 years later than my family company. And as a small brewer in be wary of advice from management consultants and investment bankers. Their interests are not aligned with yours, and they don't take any risks.
It's important it's useful because we can see where we have to work. So I think we have to define in a very professional way the composition of the board of directors. We need to understand exactly the skills that we need, and probably we have to work a lot on this area more than industry knowledge, technology, on the operation.
And outside of anybody's comfort zone, we selected a person who you will have met or will meet here, Stig Gustafsson, a very seasoned, there you are, good, board professional. Good morning, Stigo.
The Family Pact is created to manage the set of relationship between companies and family members. And the main elements that compose this are the common values, so define which are our values, what the family would like to maintain in the future, to explain very clearly which are the difference between the representativeness and the governance of the companies. Both are important, but we have to have in mind exactly the difference between the two.
Become rich, if I may say so, although that word is not allowed anymore today. With AB InBev, it was very clear. I mean, the CEO is worth 200 million today, and he's largely worth it. There's no question about it. It's a public company. There has never been any question in the General Assembly about this remuneration, because this company in 15 years was worth $1 billion when I got in. It's worth today 150 billion in 15 years. So you can incentivize, and it is a question of money at the end of the day. Of course, work atmosphere, whatever, it's all very important, but at the end of the day, that is not what people are working for, but it's what people want to see when they succeed. And success should be the same for them as for the management.
If I would add maybe 2 thoughts. One would be that alignment between the owners, the board and the management is a lot easier if you start with what is the purpose? What is it that we're trying to do? Because once that is sorted and there is a mental picture that this is where we are heading, this is what we believe this company should be, you have a mental alignment, and then you can put in incentive systems that are aligned with the time horizon of the different stakeholders, because the owners in a family business think about perpetuity. The managers, for very good reasons, will think primarily in terms of 3 years or maybe maximum 5 years, but the same mechanisms will not always incentivize the same way, even if you have the same purpose. So I would say go for the purpose first and then make sure the incentive structures are in line with the time horizon of the stakeholder in question.
Your Excellency.
Thank you. I would like the panel to ask to comment on the gender politics of family companies. When my great-grandfather wanted to discuss the future of the family company, he invited his 3 sons and the husbands of his 3 daughters. But the daughters were not invited. But this was 1948. And he actively encouraged his daughters to marry competent managers. But of course that didn't work.
This is something that you have to keep in mind. Of course, in many companies, ownership is a driver of change. But in family business, where family is committed, active in the business, this driver of change has an important role. This means that when you scan your environment, when you analyze your firm, you need also to analyze what is the status of the ownership and the expectation about the future. And this element should be incorporated in your plan or in the process to develop your plan.
But Pekka was not stupid. He invested his money that he got from getting out of these businesses into developing the elevator business. Rockefeller in America was thought of being stupid. He had some real estate in Manhattan, which he sold for $1 million. 3 years later, that real estate was worth $3 million. Everybody thought that Rockefeller was stupid. Nobody noticed that Rockefeller invested this $1 million into railroads, and 3 years later, that railroad shares were worth $10 million.
As revenues increased and IPOs realized, the structure of the Eastern companies started to resemble to their Western counterparts. Divisions became independent companies with shares sold in stock market or sold to foreign companies or private equities. Family members are either running the main holding company or serving on the board of directors, slowly pass the flag to professional executives.
Inherently, family businesses are actually more inclined to intuitively be quite sophisticated in developing brands over the long term. And this is because it relates to family reputation. It is important to understand that to all the stakeholders around the business, the perception they have about the business is the reality that dictates their actions or directs and guides their actions towards that business, which directly influences the costs and the revenues of a business. And this trinity consists of the combination, the fusion of strategy, culture and brand as the fundamental drivers of the success of a business.
Sabancı Holding should be run by professionals, and we should, as a member, only can be as a board member.
Thank you very much for the floor, Mario Bartoli from the Embassy of Italy. I have, I hope I'm allowed to pose 2 very brief questions of a general kind. The first one, which are the peculiarities, if any, of the family business in Europe in comparison to family business in other areas? The second one is, with Europe facing a less than bright, let's say, economic performance, how family business can fit into the objective of setting the pace for a renewed growth in Europe, and what kind of policies from the European Union family business are expecting in order to be able to contribute to the growth. Thank you.
Very large questions, I would say. They were not simple questions. Would you like to comment?
Industrial businesses to enable them to differentiate their offerings in the face of Asian competition, low-cost production, etc. And another example of actually very successful industrial branding is the company that Stig has spearheaded, Konecranes, who actually based on they have a very strong directional idea, which is lifting businesses. that directs everything, the productivity orientation, their value proposition focused more on highest life cycle value versus lowest life cycle cost, which is the industry standard.
Even if these companies have really good numbers, sometimes the IPO was not the right choice for them. Some other times, unfortunately, we saw companies with great numbers, great management that we would have really welcomed on the markets, and that they just didn't come to the market. So,
one of the most fatal reasons for the present downturn on the European economy has been the lack of systematic and functioning capital market services for those promising companies which have already proven their ability for growth and employment in their home country. We are talking about companies which have passed their seed money stage even a long time ago, but are still too small SMEs to be able, for example, to become publicly listed, among other corresponding options which normally are available for growing companies.
We will have to sacrifice ownership in the future somehow, or we're going to get even more in debt. And I think debt is one of the major problems for the crisis, so I'm not going to advocate for that. On the contrary, I think there are equity solutions which are probably better. And if we're looking then at the traditional lines of finance, the banks are currently extremely impaired. They don't have the capacity, they don't want to lend, they can't lend. And they're not going to take on risk which they don't understand. And looking at SMEs, it's extremely heterogeneous, the differences between companies, and you have to adapt your credit model quite a lot, so you don't really understand what they're doing. And a lot of the firms are maybe also dependent of one or two greater clients, and if one of them disappears to China, then you disappear somewhere else, right?
Succession intentions are really weak across the globe.
My family is the founding shareholder with the 80% of the stake of the group, and we found a minority shareholder in Generali Assicurazioni 8 years ago. We were looking for growing, and we found this partner, which was not only a financial partner but also an industrial partner, and we can guarantee continuity, and also we can act as guardian of our values, because as our people said in the video, it's also a matter of values and passion for what we do.
On the issue of succession, governance, education, and perhaps also inspiration, I want to share some thoughts with you about creating the right preconditions for family company survival and for preparing the next generation.
And beautiful things like these. And we want to keep that time save, even though we know for a fact that our fossil fuel consumption is going to go down over time. Why is it going to go down? There's only a few reasons possible, actually. One is they're gone. It's a bit of a grim story. Two is we're gone. That's a bit of a more grim story. And three, we found something better. And I like three, because the Stone Age did not end because we ran out of stones. We found something better.